Joining us for a closer look at what's playing itself out in that market scene is David Shapiro from Sasfin Securities. David, an absolute pleasure. Happy New Week to you.
Thank you. Much better week than last week.
Yeah, it's already been a better week than last week. Keen to maybe just get your thoughts on what we are anticipating to unfold this week. I see we've got PCE data, we've got some US earnings kicking in, lots already coming out of South Africa today. It's quite a bit actually. We missed the volume.
Even against that, though, markets are going better. And I think that it's very important. Tomorrow we get Alphabet. That's the first big tech company that's going to come out. And I think that's going to hold the key to where we go to from here. I'm positive on it. And I think the other story is that, just looking at the market now, you're reading out Amplat's results, and one's first thoughts with headline earnings down over 20% or thereabouts, that the market would go down. What's happened? It's gone up. And that's a good sign. It means that probably most of the bad news is already in the market, and it's not shocking us anymore. And, going across the whole commodities board, where we've had the South 32 write-off, that took a bit of a knock, but it hasn't unsettled the market. You're going to get those write-downs and that, but overall the market's steady. So it's too early to call the bottom in commodities, but the signs we're seeing are decent signs. The fact that we're not seeing big weakness, we're not seeing further weakness, gives you some kind of idea that this is the bottom. This is an underpin. We could be here for a long time, but at least we know where we are at the bottom.
That's very comforting indeed. I must also ask you about what we're seeing with the rand, David. I think it's around 18.27 to the dollar. I'd expect it to be a little bit stronger. It's just not. I'm wondering if that's actually got to maybe do with political issues in the US. Nothing to do with us.
You can't read it. When I say we can't read it, because whatever look, admittedly, we had an awful week in markets. Our market was down, 2.5% odd. US markets were rattled, after Trump's attempted assassination. We had the Microsoft issue. So all of those unsettled markets, and I think you got the move back into the dollar. Even though US rates are pretty steady, and even though we are still discounting or still expecting rates to come down in September in the US, which will trigger a lot of other world economies, including South Africa, to start reducing rates. So we've got to work through it. It's very difficult to read on a day-to-day basis. But like you, I'm a little, what's the word? Just shaken that we are at 18.28. We all wanted below 18. But don't try read, you can't read too much into the day-to-day movements.
Absolutely get that, David. I also want to ask you about that US election and, what markets are possibly trying to make sense of at this point. Of course, we have had big news in the last 8 days. It's been a very volatile 8 days, if we may.
We know very little about Kamala, and but what this has done is given America a choice. Before last week, it seemed to be Trump just riding roughshod again over the Democratic Party and that. Now, all of a sudden, people are saying, well, maybe we'd rather have Kamala than Trump. So don't think everybody in America is a Trump fan. So what it's done is it's balanced things out, and you've got almost a calm returning to the market, almost a sigh of relief. Okay. We've got someone to vote for. We might not get it through, but at least we can put a cross on the ballot paper. Before we weren't even going to rock up at the station, so at the voting station. So I think that's what we're getting. It's going to be very interesting to look at the polls. Not today. You've got to wait a week for the pollsters to go around and get views. Also for Kamala to speak. And to give some direction. So it's going to be a lot of fun, over the next couple of days, and our media are going to be full of it.
Well, we knew 2024 would be a year like this, David. I want to come back to company news. I think important things happening here. Sasol's up 6%. It looks like markets have also priced in all the negativity with Sasol. Very keen now to see a change in it. But I'm still, keen to get your thoughts, David, on Sasol at the core, in terms of fundamentally as a business. What are we dealing with there?
They've had enormous structural issues, which I don't think they fully overcome. I think this was more of a knee-jerk reaction to the production numbers, but we've got to see whether it's just, whether it follow-throughs to the actual earnings. So it hasn't been a great performance, been a very difficult company to read, and a lot of those are own goals. These are not. This is not the market, but commodity prices, as we've been talking about, have been under pressure, particularly chemical prices. We forget that it's more of a chemical company than it is an oil company. So still not out the woods yet, but at least we've got a 5% move up today, which is some comfort.
Mr. Price also out today, up I think just under 2%. I mean, it just keeps getting better for Mr. Price. They just happen to be one of those businesses well positioned for any kind of market that we're seeing. And of course, even in this difficult macroeconomic climate, Mr. Price continues to thrive.
Yeah, but it's getting better. As they point out, inflation's coming under control. Consumers under enormous pressure, and you're probably not seeing the numbers yet. But I think as things progress, as we get into an environment where rates start to come down and there's more money in consumers' pockets, we expect the retail sector to pick up. Again, early days, but markets respond well ahead of the news. We start to look ahead. So once more, Mr. Price up. But and I think you're going to see more of it. Listen, I'm a great bull for the rest of the year. I just think world markets are going to, just steam ahead. Yeah, and the fact that we offset last week, which was a little bit of a speed wobble, I think we'll be back on track, from today, and also waiting for the results that are going to come out of the US and that. And so I'm not scared off by the small correction we saw last week.
Love that, David. I want to get your stock pick now, but first, maybe let's take a look at counters that your industry peers are also loving at this time.
I'm going offshore with my stock pick. Most viewers probably haven't heard of it. It's called CoStar Group. And the way that I kind of came across it earlier in the week is we're looking at obviously the thesis that interest rates are going to fall in the US. That generally is good for the property sector. And we, up until now, have been slightly underweight property in our global portfolio. So we're looking for an access point to property. So I was kind of running all our screeners. We screen for a whole lot of different things. We've got a quantitative approach to this. And CoStar Group came out, which is actually very interesting. So it's not actually a property company. It's essentially a data vendor around property companies. And it's represented, it's got a data set that they've built over the last 35 years in the US, almost exclusively US focused. But it's everything from aerial footage. They've got thousands of analysts that work for them, essentially trying to value and understand exactly what specifically in the commercial real estate sector, but in all sorts of, in residential as well. And they have this huge data set and these tools that allow property brokers to value them.
My stock pick for the week would be Karoo. It did pretty well. We saw some really decent results in the past week. There is a sign of health in the underlying business overall. We saw subscribers go up about 17% to a figure just over 2 million. And that also filtered down to the revenue. The revenue was up to now 964 million, a significant change. But as well as the bottom line also had a bit of benefits filtering down. And it also increased as a result. So definitely Karoo for me would be one to look out for.
All right, David, keen to get your thoughts on some of those. We've got Karoo, that's with 5 O's, as well as CoStar Group.
At long last, we're starting to see Karoo break out of a range that has kept them down. We can't fault the results. I follow this. When I say follow it carefully, I follow it with interest because I could never understand good results, share price never really reacting. And I think for the first time, it seems to have broken through and going better. So let's hope they continue to show the kind of results that they have, and on that track. It's a pretty simple business, I mean, when you think about it. But good luck to Zach. He's done a good job there, and I'm hoping that they keep making new highs or break through that kind of range that has kept him down for some time.
And which counter are you loving this afternoon?
Look, I'm still into Nvidia and ASML. I haven't been shaken. I still love the story. even though people are getting very nervous and starting to suffer from vertigo because the share prices have gone so high. But, I can handle heights. So I still stick to my good old favorites. I'm put 2 in 1, ASML and NVIDIA, still backing them for first and second place.
Well, David with the chips, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you today. That was your Midday Markets Update with Sasfin Securities, David Shapiro.